This is so much just the journey of your own self back to yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
you're walking the journey together. But it really is, in a way, just your own journey. And your partner in the divine union is just mirroring and reflecting back to you so that you can see yourself and accept yourself and feel everything and come back to yourself. So it's really about your own journey.
Yeah.
That you're doing together.
And I just wanted to say that Tassel and I have been through some wacky situations. And lots of stuff comes up, really intense stuff. And every single time we've come back together to talk about it and been open and honest, authentic, even if the other might not like what we want to say. We have always traversed it and found these deep blessings and lots of peace in whatever category it is in. We know this works. So we've lived it. And a lot of it is literally trusting your partner is doing what you're trying to do, which is find peace and harmony. So you have to just trust sometimes when your partner's not seeming so peaceful because they're pissed off or something, that they're trying to come out of that. They're trying to come out of that. Also, they don't want to be in that. They don't want to be upset and withdrawn and all these things either. So
yeah,
they would prefer to feel safe. So
it's such a overall initiation into living from your heart, because the thinking mind just can easily freak out. Like, I can't believe this is happening. This is not healthy. This is, oh my gosh, I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
But your heart will be your compass. Your heart will want to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's your soul basically saying, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
You will move through this. You'll move through this together. It's okay. So to me, at least, it's been such an initiation further into living from my heart.
Yeah. The mind will keep telling you, we saw this before and it was horrible. So run away.
Abandon ship.
Yeah. The mind will keep doing that. And then you'll go, okay, well, I guess, but that feels horrible to run away from it.
Yeah.
Also. So, pay attention to the mind, the resistance, the mind, it'll tell any story you can think of, from your past to convince you basically that, because it's just trying to protect you. It sees your emotional pain as the same as your physical pain. It doesn't understand really the difference. It's all just protective, and it thinks that if it protects and withers in, that it's safe, but it's actually just sort of perpetuating its own state of disempowerment, I guess. So if you just really trust the partner that they're doing the same thing as you, you'll find that at least it's a lot smoother, because you're not so much wondering what they're doing. You're not so much analyzing their behavior to try and find patterning and stuff like this. You're just accepting what emerges from them now.
Yeah. It's a larger initiation into just trusting life, just trusting that what is currently coming in is my highest and best, even if it's very painful and uncomfortable, which leads us perfectly into the next topic of divine union initiations. So, as we were preparing for the course, I just started writing down all of the things that have been really challenging for me in this relationship. And we're going to share all these in a moment. And it was just so interesting that Sean looked at the list and he said, oh, me too. Exactly what has been challenging for you has also been challenging for me.
And there's probably more on this list too that we didn't capture.
So it's both partners are experiencing most of these things. So I'll just start with number one, abandonment, separation issues. And is it okay if I start, Sean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So Sean and I only met 2 years ago this week, actually. we've had just like a very rapid immersion into our relationship. And about a year ago, we ended up having a 3-month break, we now call it. But that's sort of putting lipstick on a pig, you might say, because the way I experienced it at the time was that Sean had abandoned me for 3 months. And I want him to tell his side because he also felt abandoned by me prior to that, which I didn't quite understand until later. But this was a very challenging, very painful experience for me, as it was for him. And what my higher self was really guiding me to do was to feel all of my feelings during this period. And I did have an inner knowing. There were my angels whispering to me that he would come back. I actually think your higher self was coming to me as well. And
you saw a vision of me in a journey, right? A shamanic journey that you did with a shaman.
Yeah, I had lots of really interesting metaphysical experiences of Sean like coming to me and reassuring me that he was going to come back. So I had this sense that you were coming back, but my thinking mind didn't know for sure. So, and for me to fully experience what I needed to experience, I had to kind of not know for sure. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the full catalyst, which was really necessary for my healing and integration. So I didn't realize that I had a lot of abandonment energy. So, which is why this was called in for me from my higher self. This was something I needed to experience. And anyway, I ended up just feeling into all these other situations of abandonment in this lifetime. And I think there were many in other lifetimes as well. But I was able to just really sort of utilize this catalyst for everything I could and really feel into all these other times where I had been abandoned. And it was not fun at all. It was super painful. But I did that. And I did some work in the Akashic Records, and different people came in the Akashic Records and sort of made peace with having abandoned me and all this really interesting stuff. And then at the tail end of all of that, Sean came back. After I had completed this initiation into really just feeling into all of my abandonment throughout my life. Do you want to share your side of it?
Yeah. So basically, Tassel had said some stuff to me maybe a week or two earlier, or something like that. And it's not important really what she said, but basically she just made some suggestions that some of my behavior was indicative of some problems that I guess that I didn't agree with, and it kind of destabilized the trust for me, is basically what happened. So I stopped trusting, and it was my own fear, right, that caused that. It was my fear that, like, you know, it kind of felt like she knew of my wounding and then was particularly stabbing at it with these words. And so I sort of felt, well, I can't really trust her because I've let her know and into my world and into my woundings. And then it felt like those were used against me. And I had, you know, I don't think that she intended to do that, actually. I think that it was just sort of one of those things that happens, and these weird things happen in these types of relationships where we don't really know why we've just said what we've said. And almost right away, we're like, I don't know if that was what I really wanted to say or do here. I don't really have an explanation for it. It's because we're mirroring stuff. We don't really know what we're doing. And we're having to say certain things to sort of spark a type of awareness in the other, to have them go through their thing where they're healing themselves. So basically she said some stuff and I took it really poorly. And I basically just said, I don't think I can trust her. So I felt abandoned basically in that respect, that that it didn't seem safe to, and all I really wanted was a safe partner that I didn't feel would do that. That's really all I wanted. And part of my lesson was to learn basically that it doesn't so much matter what I share or don't share, and whether I'm accepted or not accepted. Right. That started to be the lesson for me. In order for me to be at peace, I can't really worry too much about whether or not the other accepts me when I express. Like, I'd like them to, but if they don't, I have to be okay with that too. They're a sovereign being. They may not really dig it, whatever it is. Right. So I have to just be okay with that. And so on my side, I had to traverse a whole bunch of things. I had some stuff that I was sort of working on in my magical practice. I have all these different excuses, really, what they are, excuses to not engage and express what I'm doing. Basically, I didn't think that she'd understand or really grasp or kind of accept what I had been sharing. And it felt really vulnerable because it had to do with my deeper magic practice. It felt very sacred to me. So I was protecting it. And so basically we can see sort of that in this situation, I felt abandoned, and then basically immediately sort of acted as if I've been abandoned. I just was like, well, I've been abandoned, so I'll just go over here. I didn't think of it as abandoning her. It wasn't like that for me. I was doing other things. I didn't really think she cared that much. And when she would occasionally, she would reach out and send messages, nice messages, loving messages. I wasn't hearing them really, because I just figured this was some kind of ploy, perhaps, or like I wasn't able to see the authenticity in it because I had decided I don't trust her for a time. And it took some time, and then I was able to basically heal a bunch of that. It took, a few months, and I did my other stuff that I wanted to work on. And then right at the sort of right time, we sort of came back, and it was as if nothing really changed, to be honest. She had moved through enough to be able to say there's some pain here, that like leftover trauma from this that we're likely going to see. And I said, yeah, makes sense. And I still had some leftover trauma and pains from it too. That was still about trust. And a lot of it doesn't even have to do with Tassel. And a lot of the abandonment stuff that Tassel has doesn't necessarily have to do with me. So that it's also these, basically we realized, I think, that these things we're working through, we have to come together to do it. And so I came back and we talked about it all. And I tried to like fill her in on some of what I was doing, and she started to ask some questions, and we talked about it all. And, basically Grace, part of the reason that the partner has trouble coming back is because they have to, in some ways, admit, I messed up here. But the other partner has to take responsibility for their activities or whatever they have done, and what they've brought to co-create this event too. Basically, if we don't have the abandonment issue in us, we're not going to feel abandoned so much, right?
Yeah, I think just this container of everything that's happening, we are co-creating it. Everything that's happening, our higher self is calling in for us. So just there's always a blanket of grace, a blanket of forgiveness, just this higher understanding of what's happening.
Always two sides.
And at the same time, to always honor the human's feelings throughout it. So being able to sort of toggle back and forth between this is happening for my highest and best. I know I had abandonment energy, but then also, okay, but what is Tassel actually feeling on a human level of the pain and the hurt of that? So being able to hold all of that. And the next initiation is very similar. It's about withdrawal. So Sean and I think we're kind of out of it. I think we're out of it at this point, but we did have some patternings of basically, I think I would say something that hurt you, that or made you maybe lose a little bit of trust or ease in the relationship, and then you would withdraw. And so it was like a similar to abandonment feeling, like less, but like similar dynamic.
I was just going to say, it's like mini abandonment withdrawal.
It's micro abandonment.
Micro abandonment. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. And something that really came up for me that I think was really helpful for me to see is because I experienced so much abandonment as a child, when you would sometimes withdraw, and then you might, we might communicate a bit, but it would be like really rough and maybe not what I would term super friendly or gentle, maybe. That was preferable to me than the withdraw, than the silence, because I think my abandoned inner child was so terrified of complete withdrawal that even difficult, sort of not gentle interactions were preferable to her, even though probably it might have been highest and best to just sort of chill out and come back when we were more balanced. But that was a really interesting learning for me, that was present in me.
Yeah.
Such a fear of abandonment.
Yeah. And so the withdrawal, like it's basically sort of the opposite thing happening. The other person doesn't feel safe to come connect, right? Yeah. For some reason, they're in some type of hurt, pain, fear, something. Yeah. They don't feel safe for some reason to open their mouths. And it may have something to do with you a little bit, but it may not have anything to do with what's going on. It may just be their, for a lot of men are programmed more or less to just try to be not sensitive, right? Like sensitivity is weak, for example. So we may just bottle it up, sort of thing. And then eventually something happens and we start to get kind of perturbed or unbalanced from all of this bottling up of something. And then we just kind of maybe pull away and maybe we're quiet. And that pulling away is a response to just not feeling safe to express, like usually. And then sometimes the other person will comment on that and say, feels like you've pulled away. Can't we just connect? And the other person then just sort of feels judged for being sort of afraid, right? Because they would love to connect, but they're not really sure how to in that very precise moment. They're feeling that it's not safe to do so, yet being asked to do so. And that doesn't reconcile. There's dissonance in that path. They're not sure how do I connect when I don't, and my body's sort of screaming at me not to, sort of, right? And, basically it's a mirroring effect. And so either can do this basically, when the one partner has trouble accepting that the other has retreated a little, then, it sort of blooms, it grows because one hasn't accepted something the other's doing and is now commenting. And then the other will feel less and less accepted and you start to drift like that. And then the tendency is for the one withdrawing to go, why does she keep attacking? Why does he keep attacking me? Why does he keep whatever? And then the one that's just trying to come back is saying, why do they keep withdrawing? And so this weird sort of play of sorts happens where the partners are sort of just, one thinks they're trying to come together, but is actually through their energy, through their sort of in a yearning to connect, they're forgetting some of their sovereignty. And so they start to feel not great. And then they start to think, oh, if we connect, we'll feel better. And the further that goes, the worse it feels, basically. And so we start to pull away and have these experiences of just feeling both basically feeling totally abandoned, in sort of different ways. And so withdrawal is like the preliminary step to further abandonment. Someone has to end the cycle. Someone has to say, it's okay that you're upset with what I did. I forgive myself. For doing it. Here's why I did it. And like just letting it all go. Someone has to let it go and start to initiate the healing. Otherwise it just goes like that. And then that's what ends up in an eventual separation. So, abandonment is usually the deepest fear. It's sort of the opposite of the attainment of the union, right? We really want the partner to be in our life, and the abandonment is the opposite of that. So that's one of the deepest ones. And then withdrawal is like a stepping stone. And then the rest of them contribute. The rest of the things we're going to go through basically contribute to, as being precedences, I guess, to the withdrawal. Really, you'll have all these other, I guess, initiations into different topics. And if it's too catalytic, someone's going to step out. And so withdrawal is actually a really good signal in the relationship to just go, hold up, because we're not doing this properly, because he's withdrawing or she's withdrawing or whatever. We're not approaching this right. We need to stop.
Yes.
Pump the brakes and take some space if we need to. There's can be a pull to come together in that stopping immediately, right? To just stop, come together. That's hard at first. So just respect, like, especially if it's a guy that's hasn't been super emotional in his life, like myself, and is now starting to really feel the emotions he's been suppressing for all of his life. He may not know how to move through them as quickly as the feminine, who has maybe been more sensitive throughout the life. And this can go either way. So we have to just give ourselves some space and then come back to it.
Yes. And just as a reminder, we're going to talk about a lot of practices that just help us move through all these initiations right after we kind of go through all the initiations, which all sound very traumatizing.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
There's good news on the end of this.
It's these initiations should be viewed as gifts, opportunities, and gifts.
Yes.
If you can orient yourself that way, which isn't always easy, but if you can, then you can just sort of move through it so much faster, basically.
Yeah,
the reason it takes us time to move through is because we don't like what's happening.
We're resisting.
So if we can get on board, then we just go to our destination. We're on the express train.
I think what happens with so many couples on the journey is they think it's too painful, so they leave, and or they distract themselves. They numb themselves out in whatever manner, other people or other activities, just avoiding the inner work that you're really being invited to do. Okay, so another initiation that we've been through quite a bit, and I think is very common on this path, is not feeling that you're enough, not being enough. And so in my experience, what I realized is that before Sean, I pretty much only chose partners who, it sounds awful, but that I felt kind of would never leave me, that there was a bit of a energetic imbalance in a way that, it's good. They would never leave me. Which is not a healthy way to come together at all. But I was just playing into my fear of abandonment, which I hadn't even really understood at that point. So here comes Sean, and he's just amazing in every way. And, he feels like an equal. So it brought up all of these insecurities in myself of, am I enough? Am I enough? And also what I realized is I had just really been wearing a mask in all of my relationships with men. I was just presenting myself as what I thought society valued in a woman, appearance wise or behavior wise, like a smart Barbie doll or something. I don't know. I'm not even sure. the archetype I was trying to emulate, but I wasn't really being myself. I was just being this doll or robot or something. And so I wanted to be myself, and I wanted us to have a harmonious union. And I just so much came up. Am I enough? If I really show who I really am without my makeup or my hair extensions or playing the doctor or whatever, if I really am like my true self, can I really be loved? Is it enough? Am I enough? I wasn't sure. It was very painful.
Yeah. I had the same exact thing. And it's interesting because when I hear her saying that, I'm like, whoa, that's bananas to me. And she probably feels the same. If I were to say the same things, she would probably feel like, of course you're enough. How
Yes.
couldn't you be? Right. So
Yes.
that's part of the interesting thing is we can just through that little reflection alone, we can notice that it's nonsense, right? It's real and we feel it. It doesn't feel great. We want to respect it and honor that part of us is there, but it's nonsensical in a way, right? They don't feel that way. They're not seeing us that way. And we have to try to let go of that stuff. And could I talk, being enough informs the next trait or the next initiation, which is codependency. A lot of these initiations kind of cascade on each other in a way. So, being enough triggers our codependent type behaviors or thoughts, feelings, because we're not enough without them to give us something like like we don't have enough love by ourselves. So we need their love. We don't have enough skill in business to run the business. So we need their skill, or we don't have enough knowledge. So we need their knowledge, whatever it is. So there's a couple problems with that type of looking at things. First, it's transactional, right? So we're trying to gain something of transaction. If we think about that, like that sounds like we're trying to be with them for our gain, which is then if we look at it like that, we can go, oh, that's a bit icky, to be with somebody just to gain from them. That sounds not quite like love, right? That sounds more like acquisition. So the being enough sort of, I'm not enough in some way. And that makes me notice some of their strengths maybe, or some of the things that draw me to them. And that, even it could just be that they're really kind to me and they give me compliments and they treat me well. And that helps me feel better about myself. And we'll start to find that like, if we really want a compliment, it may be hard to get it, right? Like if we really desire a compliment, the partner may be a little bit less complimentary, because what ends up happening is they're trying to show you that part of you that's craving something that's outside of you. They're trying to show that to you and they don't even know they're doing it. That's one of the really important things. They may be complimentary to everyone but you, right? So you can have it manifest and show up in really strange ways. And it's all a very cascading type of initiation where these different fears about ourselves inform the experience that we have with the partner. And that's what causes this codependent type thing or a desperation type feeling, because we feel not whole, which is not true. We're whole by ourselves already. And I think if we say that, like we know that in our heart when we say that, I think, but it doesn't feel like that because we have a belief that says that we're not whole. And yeah.
Yes. And if you don't mind me jumping in, before you came into my reality, I had been on my own maybe like 3 to 4 years after my divorce. And I kept thinking, oh, my partner is coming in. I could sense my partner was coming. And I thought, when he comes in, oh, it's just going to be the happily ever after, ride into the sunset type of feeling. Everything will just be perfect. Any pains I have or insecurities, they'll be wiped away. So I was just waiting to be whole once the partner came in. And so the partner comes in And none of that gets solved at all. It actually all just comes up more intensely than ever. But the point of all of it is all the abandonment, the withdrawal, the feeling that you're not enough, the codependency, it all comes up so that you can move through it and you can realize, oh, wait, I am okay. I am okay on my own. I am okay. I love this person. I want to be with this person. There is a huge pull there. But actually, I am completely whole on my own, and I have peace on my own. And so that's the beauty of it, because if you come together and it's all great, then you're going to feel that, oh, I'm dependent on this person. But if you come together and you have to learn to be okay no matter what they're doing, and some of what they're doing might feel really painful, but you're okay, then you know you're okay. So it's like sort of counterintuitive in a way, but
yeah,
it's almost like the harder the relationship is in the beginning, at least, the more you realize that you're okay.
yes. And luckily, usually, like we said, there's a really big draw to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of safety there with each other. If there was a past place where someone ran away and has come back, it's best to really just look at it as much as you need to, talk about it, and then just let it go, because it's in the past, and it can be more damaging, basically, the more we hold on to any of those things. So we also, something that's really important is just when we notice that we're feeling codependent, like, that's okay. Like, not adding on to our feelings of realizing that, because when we first notice, oh my gosh, I'm codependent. Oh my gosh, I'm being codependent. We can really get hard on ourselves about that, because I thought I was smarter than this, or I thought I know better than this, or especially in mine and Tassel's case, we've both studied psychology a lot. We're like, we shouldn't really wander into that trap, right? So easily.
And I also want to say, I don't think it's necessarily, at least for me, like always fully kind of healed. Like I can dip into some of these feelings of feeling like codependent, or am I enough? Or it's not like they're totally gone. They're right. They're like rooms in the consciousness that you can enter, and if you're not mindful.
What we can notice is that the codependency is really just a desire or love for the person, right? That's really what it is.
That's the positive polarity of it.
There's a positive aspect to it. I really like this person. I want them around, right? But I've misapplied some of the value exchange here in like how I'm framing the relationship and what I'm thinking I'm going to get out of it. So I basically set some expectations of things that are not quite real. We've created a bit of a fantasy. And then we have to see the fantasy. So our partner will show us where the illusions are. And then that's challenging. So we can just notice that, I feel codependent, but it's just because I like them so much. I care so much about them. I want them in my life, and not having them in my life feels not great, right? Like that's what it's about, really.
Yeah.
So we can be gentle on ourselves about that as well.